There's only one snack that can make me feel like I'm having the true movie theater experience, and that's popcorn. When my mom and I hang in for a girls' night, we have to get our fix, and that's where Kelly's Killer Popcorn comes in. They're a small batch gourmet popcorn company, and believe me, one bite and you'll be hooked. Made in Austin, Texas, this family-owned business has tons of flavors. My mom loves their salted agave caramel, while I have a hard time picking between black pepper or dill pickle. Maybe I'll just mix the bags together. Oh, and when my dad and brother crash our girls' night, you know that spicy nacho popcorn is coming out. Every flavor is popped in 100% real butter and is whole grain and gluten-free. Which flavor will you be choosing? Head on over to kellyskillerpopcorn.com to indulge yourself in some scary good gourmet popcorn. And make sure to tag them on Instagram at Kelly's Killer Popcorn so that they can see what movie you're pairing with their flavors. That's kellyskillerpopcorn.com for American-made, small batch, delicious popcorn. This is The Gala Show. I'm your reporter on the beat, Gala Avary. On this episode, you may know my guest as the man that all indie filmmakers look up to, the director of films such as Phantasm, Bubba Hotep, The Beastmaster, and John Dies at the End, or the author of his newest book, Fiction, Tales from the World of Phantasm. But here on The Gala Show, I know him as one of my dad's coolest friends, Don Coscarelli. Hey, Don.
Gala, so happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me. This is wonderful.
So happy for you to be here as well. So before we bring up the topic for today, I have a quick question for you. Actually, I have two, but I'm going to start with the first one.
Sure.
You are known for your genre films, so I have to ask, what was the film that you saw as a child that steered you towards horror?
Well, it's an interesting thing because it seems that if you're young and unprepared for a movie that's different, it can really have an impact on you.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And there are two or three films that I saw as a young man that I wouldn't even say young man. As a kid, I was like 7 years old. I was watching TV one day, and I saw this 1953 film called The Twonky, and I had forgotten the name of it, but it was about this television set that terrorizes this man, and it's been infested with either an alien or some kind of supernatural force. But it was a low budget indie film by a filmmaker named Arch Obler and writer, but it had this depiction of a television set that could shoot lasers out of it and burn things, but it also could walk around on its stand, these spindly legs.
I've actually seen The Twonky.
Yes.
Randall, it's like one of the ones I've seen, and it's just really kind of disturbing.
Well, it's ridiculous. Later, as an adult, I found out that it's a comedy, but as a kid, it was really disturbing and frightening, and that set me back. There were other ones in that period. The other one that just terrorized me was The Beast with Five Fingers, starring the great Peter Lorre, who's one of the more freaky character actors ever in Hollywood.
Dad does his voice all the time to me.
Oh, does he really?
He does.
Wow. Well, that guy could just, he's a walking horror film in himself. But that was about a pianist with a severed hand that was walking around this Baroque old mansion strangling people, the severed hand. And again, effects weren't that great, but I don't think effects matter to a 7 or an 8-year-old. It's the concepts and the way it's presented. This was shot in black and white with a lot of uplighting. Even though it was shot by a French director, it felt like German expressionism, and especially with Peter Lorre in it, and with this hand, crawling around, and actually the severed hand playing the piano. These sorts of imagery and concepts to a young mind can really
get your gears going, yeah.
Yeah, like crazy. And then the one that set me on the path to making horror films was the 1954 Invaders from Mars. Because, again, watching it unprepared, I watched a lot of TV as a boy by myself, and I wouldn't know what I was watching. And I'd watch a few moments, and then it would get me hooked, and then I would be in it. And Invaders from Mars, where you had a youthful protagonist, maybe a couple years older than me, and he was the only person in this town that knew that in the field behind their house there was a Martian ship under the ground, and nobody believed him. But this kid was smarter. Was faster on the uptake than anybody else in the movie. And then as the Martians start to take over the minds of all the residents, and he sees his mother turn into a zombie and his father and the police chief, had a dramatic effect on 8-year-old me. And later, when I was looking around for a subject to do a horror film, it informed how I made Phantasm, because I seized early, I'm going to make a protagonist where it's a young kid and nobody believes him. And that's just right there, that little concept. And of course, mine was not Martians, but it was set in a funeral home and all of that backstory.
But you took from like what you were terrified of as a child,
yes,
and then probably tried to, in the best way possible, spread that terror amongst other people.
That was the plan, and it worked.
I think you succeeded in that for sure.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay, so you just mentioned that like you were watching a lot of TV on your own. Were you a latchkey kid?
No. My father worked constantly, as a lot of men in that period did.
Yeah.
I grew up in the Mad Men era, and the dads went to work, and you didn't really see them too much. So my mom was responsible. She was, she was stuck home and led that frustrated female existence in that period where there weren't much in the way of opportunities for employment or relevance outside the home. So it was a tough thing for her to endure. But no, but I did end up watching a lot of TV, and nobody seemed to have much interest in movies in my house, so everybody would filter off doing their things, and I'd be in the TV, later at night watching these strange movies, which I was gravitated towards.
Now, as always, my guest gets to bring their topic to the mic. Don, why don't you tell us what your topic is and why you decided to choose it?
Well, I want to talk about your father,
Ooh.
Roger Avary. I was thinking it'd be a fitting topic for this show because I've known Roger since he was, I guess, 18 years old and was a young punk. And I've seen him rise to the heights of a world-class filmmaker in Hollywood. And it's an amazing passage that he's gone through, and I've been able to watch it, participate a little bit, and some from the sidelines. And I adore your dad, and I did from the first time I met him when he was young. I mean, I can remember the first time I met him. He has a sense of humor, a sense of excitement. He invigorates everybody around him, and he manages to be able to take different kinds of concepts and meld them into unique trains of thought that I always found really magnetic. And plus, he's also a decent, nice guy. And I always love seeing him. But before we get into that topic, time for a commercial break.
I might be vegetarian, but that doesn't mean I can't enjoy a good spice rub. My favorite place to get them is Smoked Bros, a veteran-owned and operated business that sells premium handcrafted dry rubs, spice blends, and seasonings. Psst, guys, you can even put it on your popcorn. My favorites are Honey Badger, because he doesn't give a bleep, and jelly and peanut flavor topping, because some things just taste better together. The website even has recipes, so go check out smokedbros.com to support a veteran-owned and operated business and fill your cabinet with delicious flavor.
And we're back.
You guys heard it here. We're going to be talking about my dad, and I'm actually getting choked up already. So I have 30 minutes on the clock, and our time starts now. So how did you meet my dad at 18?
Interesting story. So I was looking to make in typical fashion, looking to make a low budget movie. And I wanted to make this wilderness adventure survival story. The title of the movie was Survival Quest, and managed to cobble together a few $100,000 to make the movie. So the trick is to figure out a way to do it. And I had a good friend and collaborator from my earlier film, Phantasm, a guy named Roberto Quezada. And Roberto was going to produce the film, and I was writing and directing it. And so we were talking about, well, how can we put together a plan to make this movie? How can we pull off this very ambitious movie where we're in rivers and in wilderness and with just a large cast as well? And what we needed some dedicated production assistants. We needed some young, eager production assistants who would do everything. And so Roberto, we were just getting this thing going. He related the story because he had been working, I think he was gaffing on a Dolph Lundgren video.
Oh my God, on the Dolph Lundgren video. And
Yes.
I've heard this story. For those who haven't heard it, my dad was, and I think Quentin too, was
Yes.
a PA on the Dolph
Yes.
Lundgren workout video. And they told them to go pick up dog poop with their hands. And so they went and did it. And there was apparently a shovel in the truck. And they're like, haha, you should have asked and seen if there was a shovel. And then that was when my dad got the advice from John, basically just saying like, no, you need to start at the top if you want to be at the top. So,
and I got all this secondhand, but see, I got it from a distant admirer in Roberto, because he's over on the lighting crew, and he's looking at the crew, and he told to me, he says, I worked with these two production assistants. They were amazing. Let me tell you this story about the dog poop. And I said, oh, what? Explain this to me. And he says, the crew was ridiculing them. They were making jokes out of them. But these guys were so eager to make this crummy Dolph Lundgren video look good and to do what was necessary to get it done, because they came from a student film ethic. He says, these are the two guys that we've got to hire for our movie.
Because they'll do anything.
Yeah. And so, and I listened to him telling this story very passionately about these two guys. And I said, and also there was another story which he related. I don't know. We'll check with Roger later to see if it was true. But I heard that there was a scene where there was a hill of sand and the crew had trampled it and it needed to be pristine. And they had no broom to brush the sand. And so they asked the PAs to go up and lie at the top of the hill and roll down with their bodies to make the sand
I wonder if
look.
that was Sand Dune Park in Manhattan Beach, where that giant sand dune
I
is.
think it could have been.
It could have been, because I think they filmed the Dolph Lundgren in Venice.
Yeah, that used to be outside your house, like down the street from
when
your
we
house.
lived right there, and now it's like weirdly, I think, closed to the public. Like they only let because I think people flocked there to go work out, and so the sand dune deteriorated.
They were run up and then tumbled down. Yeah. Anyway, that was the other story. But I keep going back to Roberto. I said, well, when are we meeting with these guys? I don't know. I called them, but they didn't call back. I'll call again. And he goes, well, I don't know if he talked to Quentin or Roger, but one of them informed them that they were done working as PAs. And that they realized they needed to make their own movies.
That was probably Dad, because John gave Dad that advice on the set, because Dad was like, I quit. And he was like, that's the mentality you need to have, is go start at the top.
The great John Langley.
Yeah, John Langley, rest in peace.
Yeah.
We love him wherever he is.
Yeah, he was a great guy.
Yeah, no, John, just a quick aside about John, because Dad's talked about John on Video Archives with me.
Yeah.
John was one of the kindest, most generous people that I ever had the pleasure to know on this planet. And just also what he did for basically the birth of reality television with cops.
Absolutely.
He shaped culture in ways that is unfathomable. When we just take for granted, I think now, what he did and just such a great guy. So anyway, this pod is all about great guys. I got you here. I got my dad about.
100% agreement on that with you. But in any case, so the upshot of the conversation was that's when we first learned about what we used to affectionately call the South Bay Film Pack, which was this group of like-minded young men who wanted to be filmmakers. And I think they were all like 19 or 20. And so Roger said, I've got a bunch of friends that I can turn you on to. And ultimately, we employed almost every one of them.
Gosh.
So first he introduced us to Scott McGill.
Yeah.
And then there was King Wilder and Dov Schwartz, Rand Vossler, Alan Sanborn.
And these are all Video Archives guys. Like people
Yeah,
that have listened to Video Archives will recognize all of these names,
Yes.
which is the crazy part. So the South Bay pack.
So they all came, and the thing, and just diverging for a second, having been a student of low budget filmmaking, as Hillary Clinton used to say, it takes a village, and it really does to succeed in independent filmmaking. You have to have some loyal comrades in arms who are going to be with you through the process. You probably need 3 or 4 key people who will do everything on your movie and will not give up. And that's so. Anyway, they had that. We met all these guys. Almost all of them worked in some capacity or other on the film. But I got close to Scott, and he was just a really sharp, talented young guy. He was like 19, I think.
It's literally a savant.
Yes,
like he was
really
brilliant.
talented. Yeah, and just in nobody will. I haven't. I think I only saw the movie once. He made a short. First off, the funny part, what got me about Scott is that he had made a horror film that was highly derivative of Phantasm. Okay, and they in Super 8 and screened it for me, and of course it starred Roger Avary. So that's where kind of my introduction there as well. But the funny part was though, but quickly on Scott, he made this movie called Portrait, and it ended with a 3-minute tight close-up on the female star of it on the beach at Manhattan Beach at sunset, and they just held in black and white in this close-up, and I went, God, this is like Truffaut or something. It was awesome. But anyway, Scott was a great guy. We would always elevate people through Battlefield promotion, so Scott became
I love that Battlefield promotion.
Because it's going,
it's
let's face it, low budget filmmaking is going to war.
It is warfare. That's
illusion,
what Dad always. No, that's what
yeah.
Dad always says, because it's also like the people, like, you want to go into battle with them. You're going to be in the
true.
harshest conditions, doing something where you are literally materializing a dream from the ether. You're
Yes.
making something out of nothing.
It's true,
and you're going to war together, and that's
Yeah.
why crew becomes family.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And so Scott became my assistant editor, and I was editing this film over in Hollywood, and we had shot miles of actual 35 millimeter film in the wilderness of all these scenes, and it took almost a year to cobble it together. So I was in this little office working with Scott, and there'd be a knock on the door, and there would be Roger with this sunny smile, and he would just come in and just brighten up the day. And the two of them were working on film projects, and I had wanted to modernize my operation on Survival Quest, so we invested in this thing. It was called a personal computer, which nobody else had on movies at the time. I think we spent like $2,000 for this thing with like a chip that, God knows how slow it's been. But anyway, so we had a PC in the office, and Scott very diplomatically asked, he says, Roger and I are working on some screenplays. Would it be okay if we used the PC? And I said, sure, it's just sitting there, so when Scott wasn't working, like on lunches, and then because your dad was working at Charles Band's company.
Yeah, he was at Charlie Band's company.
Yeah, learning all the wrong ways to make independent films. And
he should have been with you.
Yeah, no, absolutely true. But at any rate, he would come over, and then at night, and they'd spend weekends. And I think they wrote like 3 complete scripts on the PC during that period. So I got to know Roger, and just... I was like 30, and these guys were 19, but they had this spirit about filmmaking, the movies that they saw, and I could sit and talk with them. I just had a relationship.
Yeah, film kind of like erases age in a weird way.
It really does.
It like levels the playing field.
Yeah.
Like, I have film friends that are 50 years old, and I have film friends that are 18 years old, and like if we can gather and talk about movies, it really levels the playing field.
Yes,
it's really wonderful when someone has that passion.
Yeah. And so anyway, and over in that office, then Rand came over once with Quentin, and they wanted me to get Lance Henriksen starred in Survival Quest, and I was supposed to. I offered to try to hook them up with Lance to star in Natural Born Killers, right? And Lance had been a little angry with me at the end of, I don't know what happened in Survival Quest. He wouldn't return my phone calls, so I was never able to hook him up to be in a Quentin movie. So that was his mistake, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But in any case, things started to evolve. Reservoir Dogs took off. Within like 4 or 5 years of that period, Roger has directed a movie. All right. And so I went to a screening of his first film, Killing Zoe.
Killing Zoe, yeah.
And let me tell you how stunning it was, because I get invited to a lot of screenings and friends and people make movies, and most of the time you're coming out of it thinking, what do I say about this movie? I don't want to say anything bad. It knocked me out. I mean, his use of the style, the performance that he got out of I'm going to mangle his name, Jean-Hughes
Anglade, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that guy was incredible in the film. And, and then here he's got this French vision of an actress as his central character. It was, I mean, and here's little Roger has just directed this thing, and it was just stunning. And even so, I remember in the opening scene in the hotel room, she and Eric Stoltz are in bed, and instead of filming them normally, like in bed, he's got his camera on the side, and I'm looking at it and going, oh, that's a really cool way to... How come I've never done that? And here it was really stunning how great that film was, and then it went on and it got great reviews, but it's still, a little underappreciated. I think it's a wonderful film that deserves even more praise. But moving this along, so then fast forward to a year, because I kind of lost touch with Roger because he was working on something. Fast forward, another screening. It's 1 year later, and I'm invited to the screening of Pulp Fiction, which I really I know that there had been a screenplay that Roger had written that was floating around. I don't know if he wrote that was then combined.
Yeah, so originally with Pulp Fiction, it was supposed to be one part from Quentin, one part from Roger, and then the third part was from Adam Rifkin. And then guess Adam Rifkin, and they were all going to direct their own pieces of it.
Oh, how interesting.
And then Adam Rifkin I don't know why he didn't do his. And then Dad was off in Europe with my mom making Killing Zoe. Yes. And then, and the script, I guess, had gone into turnaround that he and Quentin had cobbled together. And so when Quentin called and said, oh, they bought the script and I want to direct it, Dad was like, sure, just go ahead and do it.
Well, there was a script at one time I had was called Pandemonium Reigns.
Yeah, Pandemonium. Dad still has Pandemonium Reigns. I think that...
Was that a section of that integrated into it?
Maybe a bit of it, but I think the way that they worked back then was kind of everything was integrated into itself, if that makes sense. Like they used to just like take pages from scripts that hadn't been made yet and like layer them all together. Like with Pulp Fiction, they said they just took everything they had like left over from True Romance, Reservoir Dogs, etc., and just laid it on the floor when they were in Amsterdam. And I guess smoked a lot of pot and ate French fries and like put together the script. And that's how you get Pulp Fiction, you guys.
Oh my God.
But he still has a script for Pandemonium Reigns.
I think I might have it somewhere. Yeah. I have to look for that.
That is actually, I think that is the original title of Pulp Fiction.
But anyhow, so here I am at another screening, and only this one's different because now we've got kind of like the Hollywood big shots are all there, like Danny DeVito and producers and the
Weinsteins and all those guys.
And Monty Hellman was there, director from the 70s, and even Dennis Hopper was there, right? Yeah. And it's just watching Roger and Quentin kind of, working the room together and thinking, wow, look how far these guys have come. But then when the movie started, it was the two of them sitting down there in the front row together, just cackling as the movie was playing. And it was just wonderful to see the two guys from the, South Bay still together there at that point. But where I want to go into then when I started working with Roger, which was, so they took Hollywood by storm. So it's Oscar night, and I see your dad and Quentin up there, and they're getting the statuette. Now, when you come out of the, off of the winning the Oscar, when you win the Super Bowl, you come out, and that annoying guy comes up and goes, "You just won the Oscar. You just won the Super Bowl. Where are you going now?" And the answer is supposed to be, "I'm going to Disneyland," right? Roger didn't have that answer. His answer after coming out of there was, "No, I'm going to go write the most epic, kick-ass, hyper-violent sequel to this obscure horror film called Phantasm for my friend Don to direct. So that was his choice after winning the Oscar. And we went down and had, he invited me down to the Mexican restaurant down there in...
El Sombrero?
Yes.
By the way, I still eat there like every single time I'm there.
Nice place. And he told me about this plan that he had where he was going to create this screenplay. And we were going to make the movie. And, I tried to explain to him that there wasn't really a business model for a movie that had two theatrical, Phantasm 1, Phantasm 2 came out theatrically, then Phantasm 3 had gone to direct to video. Would you come back and make a $20 million thing? And so, but he was not to be denied, and he started to work. And I think this is
the script exists.
Oh, it's out of Phantasm 1999.
Yeah, Phantasm 1999.
And when I run into Roger next, I am going to talk to him because we got to put that on a graphic novel. Because I think that'd be a perfect
thing. Yeah, Dad and I have talked about that briefly, what can we do with it?
The time is right to do that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Oh, he'll be so happy about that.
It's a wonderful work. But so anyhow, we went out to try to get. By the way, so he's writing in Manhattan Beach, and I was going down to cheerlead him on and talk and see what he's done. And your mom, of course. You are in utero at this time, right there. So that was pretty cool. And he had been working on the Gala Dali.
Yeah, you've really known me my entire life.
Yes, all the way.
Literally all the way from conception.
And I hate to even say this, but this is a weird story because I remember, great news, we're pregnant. And I'm like going, I wonder if he's going to be able to finish this script. I shouldn't admit that, but that was the first thing that crossed.
I love it. Well, my dad reminded me today that you gave me the monkey puppet.
Oh yeah, right. Yes.
But that started a lot. I'm terrified of monkeys.
Oh,
to be honest, monkeys in movies. All my friends know I don't like monkey movies because my dad makes monkey noises really good, and he used to chase me down the hallway with the puppet and the monkey noises. So it's not your fault, but I just think it's really funny because that puppet, I think about that all the time. But we kept it for my kids, my future children. We'll have the monkey puppet experience.
Terrified of monkeys.
Yeah, Grandpa will pass it down.
You're passing on the horror,
as we should.
But anyhow, so he wrote the screenplay, and we took it to a bunch of different people, and really, and I didn't find this out till later. It's interesting. This is a character moment on your father. So the plan is that we would get those two brothers, the one that's in jail now, to fund it, and evidently they said, yeah, we'll make the movie, but not with Don as the director.
Wow. What slime balls.
Only Roger came back to me and he said, they passed. He didn't even tell me that part.
Wow.
That's the character. That was really, I didn't find that out till about 8 years later. So always appreciated that from him. But in any case, we finally found this edgy, low-budget, independent company that was going to fund the movie. And they said, okay, well, the thing is that the big boss is going to be in Cannes. Could you guys come to Cannes? And we can have a meeting and we'll get the funding set. And so we looked at each other and went, oh, okay, we'll go to Cannes. And so we got some money together. We each got economy tickets, flew over, and got to meet John Langley over there. Yeah. That was a great part. Got to meet Julie Delpy. It was like a little Avary tour de force of our Cannes visit. But we finally sat down with these financiers, and the boss comes up and he says, "We're going to make your movie. We'll be back in Hollywood in a week, and we'll send you the contracts." And it was like, yes, we did it. And you can imagine our shock a week later when I open up the trade Variety and I see this article about how their company is being sold in pieces to a studio, and each one of these executives got golden parachutes. And I called Roger up and I said, those guys knew that when they told us to our face they were going to make the movie. So
God, Hollywood is full of them.
Yeah.
It's full of shysters and
it was a tough deal. But at any rate, so Roger and I have stayed friends ever since, and always like to go. We had a little history of going to see every new Kubrick movie that would go out, which would come out. And we even went and saw Spielberg's AI out of tribute because that was a Kubrick script. It was a good time. But then it was like in the early 2000s, I was making Bubba Hotep, and at this location, and Roger came down and saw it, and he thought that he could make his movie Rules of Attraction.
Yeah, because he always told me, like, growing up, like, he credited you. He was like, Don knew all the best locations in Los Angeles. Don knows all the best deals.
What's weird, though, is we used that it was the South Campus of the Rancho Los
and also
Amigos.
Like the sanatorium, right? There's like a sanatorium.
Yeah, it was
there?
a rehabilitation hospital, but this was the abandoned section. And we used it for the entire Bubba Hotep old folks home, and then Roger's crew came in and repainted it in brighter colors, and it became a college campus, and it worked out great for both of us. But I did want to, before we run out of time, just get to my next screening with Roger the day I watched The Rules of Attraction, because this was, I believe, is Roger's masterpiece.
I agree. I love that movie.
It's a wonderful movie on so many levels. I mean, you could go on the more minor levels about how he really drew a world-class performance out of James Van Der Beek. He was great in that film. And all the supporting cast were the Clifton Collins Jr. So many wonderful vignette performances.
Like Paul Williams shows up randomly.
Yeah.
So
oh my God. Yeah. just amazing. But the thing is that, again, watching the movie, what he does with time, and I mean, because I knew that Roger had an affinity for Brian De Palma, and Brian De Palma had shot a lot of split screen movies, but nobody ever made a split screen movie like Roger did, like that magnificent sequence
when it comes together,
where they come together, and then going backwards and forwards in time, like, I don't know why other filmmakers haven't stolen these, because when I'm like, I'm thinking, God, I got to come up with a movie where I could do that thing where Roger's rolling the barrel down the hall and then doing it all in reverse. It was, I just found that movie to be brilliant.
And also, like, nowadays it's really easy to do these, like, reversing, because we have, you're not shooting on film, like, you're shooting digitally, and you have a computer to edit with. But yes, Rules of Attraction was edited on Final Cut. I think it was the first feature-length movie to be edited on Final Cut. But it was shot on film, and all the reverse shots were, I think the film was put backwards through the camera or something like crazy like that, which is so hard for me to wrap my head around as someone who, like, hasn't worked with film.
Yeah.
That, like, they didn't just, like, reverse the image, reverse the video. No, it's like the film, it was shot in reverse.
No, and it's a big deal. And I know in certain cameras, you have to turn the camera upside down and do it, like, mount it upside down and run it in reverse. I know we did some reverse shots in Phantasm like that. But, but beyond the technology of it, just the artistic brilliance of that movie, it's wonderful. And the... I still quote, like, my favorite line in the movie, which I identify. I can't believe the shit that tumbles out of my mouth. So whenever I say something stupid, I always think about that scene in Roger's movie.
Yeah, we have two in my family. We say, like, I don't need an asshole on my elbow, because I think that's from Rules. And then also, like, I didn't know it came in banana. Whenever there's, like, a yellow car, where I was like, I didn't know it came in banana.
But Roger always had an independent spirit, and he has an ability to think outside the box. Oh, and even in the way he makes movies. Like, I want to tell you about a movie that he made. I don't know how many people know this story. I'm not going to name names or whatever, but he was in a difficult situation working with a difficult actor.
Oh, I know what this is. Okay, I think it's Mr. Stitch, right? Was it Mr. Stitch? What he was working in Europe?
To
it's
name
okay.
names?
It's okay. I'll name names.
I mean, he was having a difficult time with Rutger Hauer.
I think Rutger's passed now, hasn't he, or no?
Yeah, I don't know if that's.
Well, I don't know if it makes it any better. Oh no, it absolves me.
Well,
the pain and suffering I have suffered from Rutger.
as I heard the story told to me, he was having a very difficult time. And the thing is that as a filmmaker, I don't know if you've ever read that famous quote from Mike Nichols, the great stage and film director. And he was known for working with actors. And somebody asked him, what's the secret to making a good movie? And his secret is, among the cast, no assholes.
Yeah.
And because there's nothing that will destroy a repertory company of actors than having one malcontent who's has psychological problems that just ruins the experience for everyone. So anyway, Roger was working with a difficult actor, and I just love how that works, where after, like, he's tearing his hair out in like the third week, and he's got another full week, and he realized, wait a minute, if I can just write this one scene out, and I can move it to another actor, and I can get a little extra done today. And then the next day he goes in with a big smile on his face, and they worked real hard, got the scenes, and he just jumped up at the end and said, it's a picture wrap on that actor. And all the crew bursts into applause.
Well, Will Wheaton recently went on Reddit in defense of Mr. Stitch.
Yeah.
And in defense of my dad, basically saying that like it had nothing to do with dad. It was all Rutger.
Yeah.
And it was so random to have Will go on record saying that.
I would have loved to see Rutger Hauer's expression, expecting to shoot for another week and suddenly be unemployed. That was great.
Yeah.
But
that's what you get.
Yeah. But in any case, so he so Roger has continued to create wonderful works. I love the newest film, Lucky Man.
Yeah, Lucky Day, yeah.
Lucky Day, excuse me. Oh, I'm thinking of Lucky Man. Back in the
you're like melding the two together. Yeah.
Well, Lindsay. Now I can't even remember the name of the guy who wrote.
Lindsay Anderson.
Anderson, yes.
Well, you know what's funny is actually so I just talked with Adam Rifkin, and Adam Rifkin and James Paxton and Malcolm McDowell just did a movie called Last Train to Fortune, and Last Train to Fortune was written by Adam's mother way back when for TCM, and never got made. So they were going to make it, and Lindsay Anderson was supposed to direct it.
Oh my gosh!
And it was supposed to star Bill Paxton and Malcolm McDowell, and then Bill died. Oh, at first Lindsay died.
Yeah.
And then Adam was going to direct it, and then Bill died. And so then they put James, his son, in the role.
Oh, wow.
So it's a really wonderful like homage to like everyone that was supposed to work on the movie. But yeah.
Yeah,
it's my Lindsay Anderson connection. I'm hearing a lot about him recently.
It's great. Oh, I did overlook the other, after the demise of Phantasm 1999, Roger did keep his, did dip his toe, kept his, I'm mixing my metaphors there. He stayed involved in the Phantasm franchise and did an on-screen performance where he played probably the greatest dead Civil War soldier ever depicted on film.
I've never seen that before.
Oh my God. It's a black and white flashback to the Civil War sequence, and Roger propped himself awkwardly into a standing coffin in a Civil War uniform, and he had the long mustache and the beard, and it's amazing.
Wait, which Phantasm is this in?
Phantasm Oblivion. I'll send you a DVD. Do you still have a DVD player?
I don't even have a TV in this house.
Oh no.
I know. Aren't I crazy?
God.
I just go to my parents.
Okay. Well, I'm sure he's got a copy. You guys got to watch that.
I'm sure I have it. I did not know. He's never told me that.
Oh yeah, no. That was great. But he's so funny and such a good sense of humor. It's the thing about Roger is that how he can connect things, and the problem is that if I were to tell specifics sometimes, but I remember he came to me once with he had been offered work on the Dawn of the Dead sequel.
Yes.
And you probably know the story, and I don't want to talk about it too much because I there was something else he might be still working on in that vein. But he had a perspective on the original Dawn of the Dead that obviously he'd been thinking about so long. And then when he came to me, he said, "Oh, this is how I told them I would do Dawn of the Dead." And I thought, "Oh, this is original. It's got a much better protagonist in the film, and connects so beautifully with the original." He had a way of putting that together that's always his level of creativity is just wonderful. It's a real gift.
Yeah, I know that he's still actually working on that. I've read a little bit of that.
Yeah.
And so I can't wait for him. I think it's genius.
Yeah, it is.
Actually, I think it is completely genius.
Yeah.
So
and
if I do say so myself, just to toot my dad's horn, I think he's an excellent writer.
And in all the zombie stuff done since, that kind of stuff has never been touched. That little nugget of an idea. Another tribute to Roger. But the best part about it is just being friends with such a supportive individual. He's just so always a cheerleader for anything that you talk with him about. And a lot of times with friends or collaborators where you're at a very vulnerable moment when you have a nugget of an idea that you want to try to figure your way through. And I would pitch ideas to Roger, and he finds a way to push them farther along and give you like 5 different ways of looking at it. And it's such a valuable commodity. Have we reached
We reached our 30, which is
I could talk for hours about this.
This was honestly really beautiful for me. Like, this was really special because, like, I've heard some of these stories, but like, I haven't heard like the full stories. Like, I always knew that like you and my dad were friends. Like, I went to the John Dies at the End premiere with him, I think.
Yes.
I think it was the premiere, yeah. And like, I watched Bubba Hotep and Phantasm growing up. Like, I always knew who you were, and my dad always spoke of you, but like, I didn't know like how you been. I also didn't know like your relationship with Scott, and obviously like Scott and my dad were best friends.
Can I tell you? I'm going to give you one more story about how he impacted the making of Bubba Hotep.
Yeah.
Okay. Bubba Hotep was based on a short story. Brilliant short story by a great Texas author named Joe Lansdale, who has this magnificent description and dialogue throughout the story told in this East Texas vernacular. I wanted to keep it in the book. I mean, in the movie. I wanted to take it from the book. I didn't want to leave it there. And so I created a narrator. And I had a third-party narrator who would narrate sections from the book. And I brought Roger down to my little editing trailer and I didn't know what I was doing with Bubba at this point. And I had brought 3 other friends, and he's sitting with them. And halfway through, like, somebody says, "Oh, this narration could be a problem." And then we get to the end, and Roger just stands up and he says, "You need to drop that entire narration," just like that. You have to just listen to me. You have to drop this narration.
I like that he waited until the end, though. Like, he listened to the whole thing.
And I said, "Oh God," because I'd gotten a little criticism, and now Roger is just ordering me to do that, and I did it. Okay, so I dropped that, and instead I took segments of it and just put it all through the lead character as his voiceover, but I got rid of the third. So thank God he came to that. And that's why why then you came to other of my because unlike other filmmakers, I really cherish having, quality feedback and supportive feedback like what I would get from Roger and from you.
Yeah, I love it. I remember like once we came to your house to watch one of the Phantasms.
Yeah.
And then seeing John Dies at the end, it was so wonderful. So yeah, this has been like a real gift to me, honestly, like your conversation about my dad. So I really love it. But that's all the time that we have for today. But is there any final thought that you'd like to leave the audience with?
Oh yeah. First, I'd like to talk about my new book. May I do that?
Yes.
The
title. What is it? Fiction.
Yeah. Well, a few years back, I wrote a memoir about, but it was, it's just telling the true story of what it's like to make independent films, and that was called True Indie. But I always wanted to gravitate to writing some fiction, and now I've appropriately titled it PH Fiction, and essentially what it is further stories from the Phantasm world. And so during COVID, I had nothing better than fantasize about different characters that were in the different Phantasms and tell a little backstory about them. And I can't tell you how liberating the process of writing prose and novels and short stories is compared to the harsh structure of writing screenplays. Oh yeah, no,
it's actually freeing.
It is absolutely
because you can let your mind go anywhere.
Yeah.
And do anything.
You don't need an outline.
No, you don't.
Like you can just find your way. And and that part was great. And the other part about it that's great is that when you finish a book, you can give it to people and they can read it, enjoy it. Where you finish a screen, and I have dozens, and I'm sure your dad's got dozens of screenplays in the closet.
Oh yeah.
And you slave years over those things, and no one ever looks at them other than the executive that gave it the thumbs down. So,
did you say so? It's fiction, tales from the world of Phantasm. So it's like an anthology of like different stories.
It's a collection of short stories. There's 6 short stories.
Which one's your favorite?
Well, the first one it's an origin story on the character of Reggie, who's kind of the everyday every man who becomes an action hero through the course of the 5 films. And it's his origin story because he did, as a young man, serve a tour of duty in the Vietnam War. And we never really talked about it. And I thought, oh, well, this would be a great way to, tell Reggie in Vietnam, only he has some supernatural experiences. So that was a good one. But I got to do one about, there's a character from Phantasm 3 named Rocky, and told her whole story. But the best part about it, I think, was to give some backstory to disposable characters from the first Phantasm. Like, for instance, the guy who very famously, he's only in the film for about 1 minute, but he takes a sphere to the head.
Oh my God,
and it's
an iconic shot.
Yeah.
It's iconic.
Yeah. Well, this tells his story. Well, how did that guy get to work in a funeral home, and what was he doing there, and why was that under the domination of the tall man? And so it was a fun way for me to impart a lot of the knowledge that I have gained about funerary customs, traditions, and technologies in the context of a little short story.
I love that.
So it's fun.
You had a signing at Dark Delicacies, didn't you?
Yes, we did. And it was a load of fun. Brought some of the Phantasm actors out there. Those people who like Phantasm would have probably, if they weren't there, they probably wish they were.
I bet.
Had an opportunity to get a photo with Reggie Bannister sitting in the 1971 Plymouth Cuda from Phantasm 2, and the actor from Phantasm 1 was there who plays that song in Phantasm, and he did a little performance. It was a really fun time. A lot of Phantasm fans had a good time.
Dark Del always has like the best events.
Oh, they're the best.
I love it. That's in Burbank, by the way, for those that don't know what Dark Delicacies is.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a secret, but they're only going to be there. Their lease is running out, so they got about I think till April of next year, so you got to get over there before they close.
No, definitely check it out if you haven't, but they've been there for a long time now.
Yeah, what's wonderful is that they bring interesting authors in, and you can come in, and a lot of horror authors pass through there. I know Joe Lansdale, who wrote Boba Hotep, has been there a number of times. Yeah,
and your book is now available in paperback and Kindle, right?
Yes, Amazon.
I know. God bless them. Thank you so much, Don, for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you much.
This has been more than a pleasure for me. It's been a gift, so I appreciate this so much.
Oh, it's been great.
If you'd like to keep up with Don, you can do so on Instagram at Don_Coscarelli, on Twitter at Don Coscarelli, or on his website, phantasm.com. And be sure to check out his latest book, Fiction, that's with a PH, Tales from the World of Phantasm. It is now available in paperback from Amazon or on your Kindle. I'm Gala Avary, and this has been The Gala Show. The Gala Show is brought to you by Insertomatic. This episode was executive produced by Roger Avary and produced by Gala Avary. Music composed by Andy Milburn. As always, I'm your host, Gala Avary. Copyright 2023, all rights reserved. Despite me sharing the same last name with this charity, I don't have any affiliation with it, besides the fact the issue is very near and dear to my heart. Did you know that in the United States, 2.7 million children currently have a parent in prison, and it's estimated that 10 million children have experienced parental incarceration at some point in their lives? I was one of these kids, and as an adult, I am really grateful to be able to give back to Project Avary. Their mission is to build leadership from within by supporting community through programs such as mentoring and outdoor education, and also to remove the stigma surrounding having a parent that's incarcerated. You don't have to feel alone. If you know a kid who could use these resources or would like to donate money or time to the charity, please go to Project Avary, that's AVARY.org, to check out what this amazing charity is all about. Again, that's projectavary.org. Thank you guys from the bottom of my heart.